ask our ICANN speakers, Kurt Pritz and Olof Nordling, whether your experience is that people are being open about this and what sort of implications that gives you planning-wise? I mean, first of all, can we be open here? Do you know how many applications you've had already? Or how is that being managed internally?
Yeah.
Do you?
You? Do you? So I don't. That information's kind of closely held to protect the interests of those that are participating in the system. What ICANN's publishing now is the number of registrants into TAS.
So is that the figure that, because there was an announcement that the chief executive made of 26 names
right.
a couple of weeks ago. Do we know what
Right,
that
so
was?
that number is about up to 100. Each registration can be used for up to 50 applications. So the system isn't meant to accommodate those who want to apply for one or multiple TLDs. So it's uncertain how many applications are in the pipeline based on that number of registrations, and that number will be continually updated over time. And so, you know, we don't know what we don't know about those who have decided to keep their application confidential. And we think that's particularly true with respect to brand TLDs for the reasons that were just discussed. So what does that mean for ICANN is that you have to hope for the best and plan for the worst. So we're planning for, you know, 0 to 4,000 applications, even though we know the number is going to be well inside that. We would just want to ensure our systems and processes are robust enough to address that.
Okay. And Olof?
And just a little reflection about, because that's pretty clear that for all the reasons that have been mentioned, that, well, companies may want to keep their cards very close to the chest. I think the big exception would be the city and region TLDs, which have declared pretty openly, many of them, and by that token also starting their marketing of their brand, as it were. But then again, they have some kind of exclusivity, which may be a little difficult to compare to the brand owners.
Thank you. John, is this something that you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said, but I would just add that I think the motivation of brand owners in not declaring their intention one way or the other is that their worst nightmare from speaking to clients is that they decide not to apply and then find out that their greatest competitor has applied, and then they're going to be locked out of the system for however long it takes until the second round is opened. And obviously we heard a little bit about the fact that ICANN wants to begin the second round as soon as possible, but for obvious reasons, you're not in a position to say now when that date's going to be, but we certainly know it's going to be some years from now.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, can I ask, or we could just do a little sweepstake along here and maybe involve some people from the audience. Do we think the next application round will be within our working lifetime?
We have lots of sweepstakes and pools at ICANN.
Okay, so we'll see.
Every considerable betting scenario.
Sir, could you just introduce yourself before you pose your question?
I'm Peter Scott, I'm editor of World IP Review magazine. I just had a question. Everyone seems to be working on the assumption that basically if your company is above a certain size, i.e. you can afford it, that this is a good thing to be doing. I'd just like to ask the panel generally, are there situations in which you would advise, or indeed are advising your clients, not to pursue a .brand, and for that to be a sort of final decision? And if so, why?
I think I'm going to direct that question to this side of the table, unless any of the ICANN guys want to comment on that, because I would imagine that's not something you'd like to.
Not in a position to
you're
give
not
advice.
You're not here as a sales pitch, but that. Who'd like to go first on that?
Perhaps if I start, the decision whether to apply or not is, as we've discussed, not going to be a purely legal one. There are brands who would not satisfy the technical requirements. If you're a two-letter brand, then you're not going to be able to apply for your two-letter brand as a TLD. There are obviously there are examples of a single brand being shared, or a single name being shared by more than one owner, which is clearly clearly going to affect the decision, I think, to apply, but could it actually mean that you'd be more likely to apply than not? Our role has been more in terms of making sure that the business people at our clients can decide with a full understanding of the process and what the factors are and what it costs and so on. We certainly, personally, I haven't been advising a client not to apply. There are certainly plenty of different reasons why clients want to apply, and also various reasons why clients don't want to apply. I mean, one interesting reason we've come across with a particular client that we've talked about the whole issue with is that if you're a brand owner which owns a lot of brands, and I'm obviously not going to mention the name of the client, but you can think of, I suppose, different pharmaceutical, cosmetics, food companies that have a big range of brands. This whole process, certainly as things stand now in the current round and with the sort of financials we're talking about now, is just not going to be affordable to register your whole portfolio of 20, 30, maybe more than 100 brands.
And I think that's very much kind of my point of view as well. We've not been in a position to advise people not to go for it, or indeed to press them hard to go for it. But I think, from my point of view, it has to be part of an overall strategy. There's no point in doing it as a vanity project or having it, I would argue, even purely defensively. I think you need to put it at the heart of what you're going to do as a brand, and it needs to become the focus of your marketing from here on in. If you're prepared to do that, and you're prepared to think through all the repercussions that means, then I think it's a good thing to do. If you're not, or if there are reasons why you can't, to John's point, if you've got a portfolio of products that are very different in different locations, or it's very important that you have different cultural, linguistic sensitivities, and there may be good reasons why actually a global marketing campaign doesn't work. And for those people, I think it might be a harder push.
Rolf, Larsen?
Yeah, no, I think as long as you can afford it and you can take the name, we wouldn't recommend not going for it. And I second what Ben says here. I mean, it's important that you do it for the right reasons, and not only to protect the name.
I think one question I would like to ask you both is that, as we've heard, and I think it brings out Mr. Scott's question as well, is we've heard today about a lot of the opportunities that these bring, and particularly bring to brand owners and big businesses. So why is it that, particularly in the United States, the brand owners and big businesses are so cross about this? Why are they just lining up one after another and denouncing the programme? Do you have any explanation? Because it seems from listening to the presentations today that this should be a major opportunity for them.
Having been to a number of trademark conferences and trying to, being, of course, asked that kind of questions. Why are you doing it? And then why not? Well, in most cases, the fear of an immense increase of defensive registration needs is, I think, at the core of that resistance.
And that's not mad or evil, is it? That is actually a reasonable fear. Given if we're thinking, 1,000 new domains being rolled out at 10 per week, that's quite a cost for business as well as an opportunity.
And this is, of course, one of the reasons that so much attention has been paid, particularly to trademark protection, both on the top level and on the second level in the process. And many of those, there were 2,000 comments, they pertain to that. And of course, the additions and the novelties that have been introduced at Trademark Clearinghouse, like the URS and the request for, well, I can make up quite a long list of measures that have been introduced, not to mention, for example, the need to run it on DNSSEC to avoid, faulty handling and such. So, plenty of additional features and procedures have been added in order to allay that kind of fears. And well, it's come a long way from the first version in that regard, and there have been multiple working groups that have worked with, of course, intense participation from the intellectual property constituency. So you should know more about it.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think trademark owners are reacting rationally, and so they want to pursue actions on many levels. So one is to continue to push for more trademark protection. So we won some, let's push for more. Second is it is a complex decision, so let's buy more time and maybe delay. And the third is let's get our application together. So I think you're right. They're acting rationally, you know, and take that kind of three-pronged approach.
So let's take your question, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jorgen Schips. I work with OMG, which is a digital marketing agency in Norway. It's looking from the outside. I've been looking at this concept for quite a few months now, and it seems so strange that this is kind of a small revolution going on this, the whole marketing aspect of the internet, and it seems like they're just a small group of people, at least looking from Norway's perspective, talking about this, attending these kind of sessions, which, I mean, there are lots of open chairs here, and on a subject that seems so kind of both should be very, very interesting for brand owners, but also for the generic terms. I mean, we're talking a lot about brand names here now, but thinking about the potential commercial value of owning a .hotel, for example, and you said it's not possible to sell a subdomain, but still you could rent it out at quite high prices, obviously. And now we're kind of 1 month into the period, and it's going to close, and we hear maybe 5 years until it opens again. It just seems like this is something the Pope is doing within the Vatican, and not telling anybody until the doors are closed and smoke comes out.
Yeah.
Could you, very long kind of question there, because some comments on that, please.
Yeah, so can I ask Rolf Larsen to comment on that question? This is a revolution that's happening. But why is it just a few people in the room? And then I want to hear what ICANN's doing to bring the word out.
Yeah, I mean, this process has been going on for a long time, but it has been going on within a relatively small community. And there's not been, you know, a lot of PR coming out of that work during those years. So, of course, the brand owners are not very much aware about what's going on. So when we talk to possible clients, I mean, more than half of them, and they have not even heard about this. And for the rest of them, just a very few understands what's going on, even if they heard about it. And that is a hard thing to make the whole world aware of a new change. But I do agree with you that it is rather seen as a big problem that more companies are not taking this more seriously than those who are already looking at this.
John Wilks, obviously from the legal point of view and the brand protection point of view, there's been quite a lot of lively interest over the years. Is it your experience that your client base knows about this process?
It's not. I would say that there are, I suppose, different types of clients. I think the big global brands who have dedicated in-house trademark experts, I think those clients tend to know more about it. It's kind of the next level down of perhaps more national brands. Where they're using external legal support. There's definitely less knowledge. I think that one issue is that the first question you get from any client is, what's it going to cost? And there's obviously a significant cost. Then the next question you get, well, why would I want one? And we've heard that there's lots of different reasons. And there's a certain amount of crystal ball gazing that needs to be done before really understanding what you think, how you think the world and the internet users are going to develop, and what the true value of these are going to be. And I think this afternoon's session has hopefully been useful in terms of exploring some of those issues. But there are a lot of unknowns there. And I think that a certain number of the brands don't really get beyond that initial what's it going to cost, and that in terms of looking deeper into it. I think it is going to be, sadly, for a lot of these brands, further down the line that they suddenly realise what the fuss that people who were in the inner circle were trying to generate was all about.
I think this is something that came through in your talk, Ben Maynard, is that there are the direct costs of the application, but there are also many, many indirect costs that will flow from the strategy to apply.
The first question I wanted to ask the ICANN people was, do you think that you started too early with the application period? Maybe the process should have been finished, or don't you think it can be finished? Because, yeah.
No. Well, first of all, if you look at the two latest iterations of the applicant guidebook, it's not that it has changed. There have been a few clarifications and rectifications of blatant errors in the first one. So I wouldn't say that the process is in some kind of float and will change. I would say it's pretty well defined as it is. Okay, well, there are a number of assessments to be made in the process, but those will not be modified, and certainly not at this late stage.
So I'm going to extrapolate from those comments and questions two things. Do you think that if I say community, I just mean people really, understand the benefits of new gTLDs? I mean, we've heard a lot about that today. And secondly, really a question for ICANN. If the number of 10 to 15% of IDN, meaning Arabic script, Chinese script, ones that are not currently, that don't fit into ASCII really, if it's only 10 to 15% of applications, has ICANN really done its job with this? If we end up with .google, .ebay, I'm making this up, I don't know if they're going to apply, and just millions of .brands and a couple of developing country or IDN applications, have you done your job?
So I thought.
And then we'll go on to your question.
Okay.
Do you want us to talk or wait for the rest
I
of the
do.
questions?
No, I want you to talk now. Sorry.
All right. So there is going to be a second round. So all the opportunity will not be exhausted in the first round. And there will be benefit received from the introduction of new gTLDs, IDNs, and ASCII. It will open the door. This opens the door to IDN gTLDs, and we expect over time, as competencies are built up across the world, that there'll be more and more IDNs. So then the question is, do you delay the new gTLD program until you can get perfect balance across the IDNs? And the response we've gotten back, and is it Kirsty? Is that your name? Froelich? What's your first name? Kirsty? Catherine? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So part of the answer is You know, in the beginning when we talked about 6 years and 13 years, that there's been complaints about the process taking so long. And so when the board approved the applicant guidebook in when was that?
Oh, in June.
June that they selected a date almost 6 months after that for the launch and used that time for additional communications. And so I would say too that you know, there's been a lot of discussion here today about how important it is for your brand to apply for a new gTLD, but you know, part of our talk has been prior to this that they're not for everybody, right? That the primary benefits are expected to accrue to all internet users and not just those who apply. And so it is a benefit risk decision to each company. It is a complex one. Additionally, it's not expected that all have expertise in running a registry. There's 300 of them or something like that, right, in the world. So it is kind of a unique area of expertise. So I don't think you're certainly not unique in your feelings, and it's complex to pitch to a corporation whether or not they should apply, and those who pitch it, like you, have to take a very complex set of circumstances, this guidebook that's grown to 300 pages, and try and distill it down to some key issues for your company. So that is sort of difficult. And Khaled, I remember the timing of this. When we first started, we said, well, we'll launch new gTLDs long before IDNs are ready. That's what we always thought. So the first round of gTLDs, you know, would probably not have IDNs. But as it turns out, IDNs were launched. The new gTLDs took a long time to work out additional protections and the like. So I think we're kind of fortunate that we get to do it all at once, which was always our intent. But the timing worked out a little different.
Should we mention as well that, of course, I mentioned initially that the IDN CCTLDs, well, the fast track procedure for that was launched in 2009 in order to really satisfy the urgent needs. And, well, maybe that has most certainly has had an effect, and that's an open-ended process. And of course, will be completed with a full policy development for the more extensive needs for IDNs on the CC side. At the same time, well, it's perfectly open for the new gTLD round to apply for IDN gTLDs. I don't have any information how many there have been applied for, but it's not a numbers game. In the sense that if we got umpteen 1,000 or 100 brand applications, it doesn't mean that the IDN, those applying for the IDN, have failed in some way. It's not sort of just comparing big number with a small number. Those may be the ones that will expand the fastest in the future. So we shouldn't oversimplify the comparison.
And a case in point is the Russian Federation country code, which launched in Cyrillic about a year ago and has over 1 million names now. So, Rolf, Larsen, you wanted to come in and answer Rob Golding's point about string similarity, really, if I can put it in that way. And can you guarantee the outcome of these applications, please?
No, I can't. But there are certain set rules, and other than that, if it's competing with either names of cities or names of regions or then that's a risk, and assessing that risk is something the applicant needs to do themselves.
And this is part of what your system will also do, is look at similarity to reserved names and all of that. Yeah,
if there is a risk, it will alert you, but then there might need to be a risk assessment, and that's what we use Eli Piper for. Okay. But I also want to comment on exactly what Olof just mentioned, that the successfulness of the first round is not about a numbers game for the generics being IDN or not, because as long as the right names are being applied for, there's tremendous opportunities for increasing the namespace, which what this program was for in the beginning. It's natural that the bigger numbers will be from the brands. So we don't need thousands of generics. We don't, but we need more than we have now. I know that there will be many new good generic names applied for in this first round. So I don't think that will be an issue whether or not that was successful. I also know quite a bit of IDNs that will be applied for. There's going to be a fact that the big number is the brand owners.
And I have a question for the registry registrar structure, because it seems to be that ICANN put a registry registrar structure in place like 10 years ago, where VeriSign was not allowed to sell to their end user anymore, but resellers should be put in place. If a .brand is going to get their .brand, are they allowed to sell to their customers themselves, or they have to go through even owned by themselves or not registrar, which should be again accredited by ICANN? Is there a way for a new gTLD to sell domains directly to the public?
Yeah. So yes, read the registry agreement that's in the module 5 of the guidebook, and it describes that registries and there can be co-ownership of a registry and registrar for new gTLDs, and those.
Co-ownership, but then you should also apply to become a registrar as well. So if I'm .brand and I have gotten my .brand as a gTLD, do I also have to apply for a registrar with ICANN to be able to distribute my own gTLD domains, or is that something related?
Yeah, you do. You believe it needs to be in a sub-entity.
So you have to incorporate in another entity?
Sub-entity, in a daughter company.
Okay. Yeah. That makes it even more complex.
If I could just try to understand your question, you're saying if you're planning to sell domain names to the public, you need to have registrars, right? You can't just do it direct.
Right.
That's your question.
Well, and if so, you can do it direct. It seems to be, because it seems to be part of the applicant guidebook. But for that, you need, I guess, then a special license again from ICANN to be able to do so. So you not only need to have this gTLD license, but you also need to get this registrar license set up. And you have new regulations, new insurances. I think there is a fee of $4,000 a year to become a registrar. It's not all that big jazz, but you still need to go through that process, isn't it? Or is that not true?
Yeah, so the ICANN registrar accreditation process puts minimum qualifications in place to ensure that there's some protections for registrants, that they're dealing with an entity that's licensed as a business, that's insured, that has some technical wherewithal also, and to parse that away, to try to develop a set of circumstances under which you don't have to become an ICANN accredited registrar but sell names because you're a registry gets very complex. So if you want to sell names directly to the public and work with the registry through EPP, you have to become an ICANN accredited registrar, whether you're a registry or not.
So if I'm a big brand and I have my big brand registered as a new GLD, I'm not allowed to sell my own domain names on my own website. I have to go first through this process with a subsidiary to make sure I can actually do that.
Yeah, and again, that's why I'm steering you to the agreement to read that to be really clear.
Okay. Sir?
Yeah, I'm with .tk as well. My name is Marcel. I had a question about the whole brand ownership. ICANN says that you're specifically looking at trademarks to protect them. But on the other hand, a lot of trademark owners don't know what's going on. There is an objection period. If they still don't know, if I own eBay and I don't know that somebody registered eBay or attempt, what happens after that? If it gets assigned to my neighbor and then I find out.
Yes, none of us have really spoken to that, have we? So let's do a bit of scenario planning. Should we take eBay as the example, just for the fun of it?
Good.
So eBay just misses the entire thing and ends up living in a world where there's a .ebay not run by eBay. Is this possible? And what should they do?
So they should be fired, right? After they've been sacked.
Okay, that's not going to take it out of the room, though, is it, Kurt?
There are post-delegation objection procedures in the guidebook, which I didn't go into detail on the basis that there was already enough material in my talk. But certainly, if you are effectively kind of using your using a domain which is registered in a dishonest and in a dishonest manner, such as that, there are procedures to deal with that.
Even if it was reviewed by ICANN themselves, right? It wasn't reviewed. I mean, there's someone else using that brand name, and eBay is obvious that you are probably going to say no to that, but there might be brand names that you're not aware of.
Right, so a more realistic scenario might be .apple. So the Apple Growers Association gets .apple, and they have a legitimate interest in that name, so there's really not grounds for refusing it. But then if they abuse the name, later in some way, then there's a way to go get a remedy directly from the registry. Before new gTLDs, all the remedies were against the second level domain name holder. So if somebody in .apple registered computer.apple, you could probably have that name taken down through UDRP or now URS. But with this, remember those long acronyms, PDDRP, post-delegation dispute. In that more likely scenario, there's a remedy against registries, but that has to be carefully taken. I think you have to show some action on the part of the registry, not just a sort of an ignorance about what's going on.